Hello, podcast lovers. Thank you so much for coming back. This is your host, Jana. And today I'm so excited for this conversation because I haven't had a conversation like this in all my other episodes. So I'm so thrilled to have this amazing, enlightening, and inspiring conversation. Jola is somebody I have met a few weeks ago. We both joined a very beautiful, power network called Global Women, and that's where we met. And when we talked privately, not only did we have our heritage roots kind of in a similar way, we both are from Europe, which already felt like we kind of know each other from another life. But when we dive deeper, I found out so many amazing things about Yola. And Yola, first of all, thank you so much for being here and sharing your golden wisdom today with so many of us. I'm thrilled to have this conversation with you today. Hi.
Thank you, Jana. It's such a pleasure to be here. And I'm so glad that we connected because you meet so many beautiful women in those organizations, don't you?
Yes,
You just click in. Yeah.
yeah, I completely, like, I'm so grateful that I stumbled upon Global Women. And because, like you said, there's so many amazing, extraordinary females and we all do so many different things. And it's just wonderful when we come together, not as competition, but we come together and share from a space of this is really what happened to me and this is my craft. And maybe this can help you and your business too, even though my craft might be different than yours.
Yeah.
And today your craft, I'm so excited to talk about because, quite honestly, marriage, right? Being married for a long time and really being in a committed monogamous. In your case, I know this is true, and I know this was true for me too. Relationship, but yet, even though when we decide to have such relationship, which doesn't matter in what sorts of a relationship you are, there's going to be challenges, there's going to be tribulations, there's going to be challenging phases and really difficult things that will come our way. And I would love for you if you can maybe please, because I already know this part of you, but I want everybody to know that too. How long have you and your husband been married? And if you just want to maybe share a little bit about your overall marriage and what kind of sort of transpired, and yeah, be
Uh,
great.
so we just celebrated in December our 20th wedding anniversary. I will share that the 10th wedding anniversary was the worst day of my life. And if you
Okay.
had to renew a license on every, decade, I would have been long gone. So I'm really glad
Right.
that that was not the requirement. And we made it to 20 and it's better than ever, which is absolutely
Wow.
amazing. So yes, we're together for 23, almost 24 years, and then married, have three children. They're 10, 11, and 13. We worked together for almost forever since even before we got married, we started working together. So it almost looked like it was the marriage kind of started dwindling kind of really quickly because we worked together so much. There was all conversations were about business and growing and building and things like that. So then in that process, we lost ourselves. We lost
Mm.
we were, and then like we had three children back to back, and so the life took a spin for not so good. But then it also gave me this passion, the drive to do what I do right now.
Yeah. And when you talk about the spin and losing yourself, I know this is so true, I guess for many people out there, but specifically females, I feel like we found often ourselves in situations where we now have this amazing title wife and mother, but and we take it very seriously. I know from private conversation that you very much took it very serious, your role, and you were very committed to your home and your family and your unit. And but I'm so interested when we get to that part of, now that I know my spouse so well and we decide to go, build a life together. Obviously we trust each other, but I'm wondering, when you talk about life took us for a spin, when was the things when start really to become almost like, and I don't want to say unclear, but kind of like foggy of like, okay, I know this is my husband, I know we're together, I know we want to build this life, but who am I again in this part? Like, did you ever find yourself in situations where you found yourself just so involved with his needs or his things that are kind of like on his self, like his business or his
Yeah.
hobbies or his whatever? Did you ever find yourself in a spot where you're like, I'm more committed to his dreams and his responsibilities and his desires than actually my own? And was that a normal thing, I wonder? Because sometimes I feel like when we're wife and mother, it is kind of normal to take care of home, right? But so, yeah, I'm so curious to find out from you, where was that spinning part for you?
Oh, the spinning part was like a very big spin, because not only did I move from the West Coast to the East Coast to be, because my family lives on the East Coast in New York City, I moved to California, and I was doing accounting, and I was going to do business administration. But then we together decided that public relations would be much better for me, which actually was a really great choice still, but with the perspective of me working with my husband, because he was starting his plastic surgery practice. And
Mhm.
in the beginning, when I was still going to university here in California, I changed my major with the premise of working together. So that's where it started. And then
Good.
I was doing modeling in New York City. I stopped doing that because it was too far to go to LA, and I didn't have time for that. I just had so much joy with working with my husband, and the positive affirmations, and then this feeling of like I'm working really hard, and I would work like for 10 hours a day and doing pictures and things like that. My husband would come home, and I would just share with him like I did all this work, and I'll get all this praise. So I was like high on praise at that time. But then things started shifting, and the scope of work changed. And I was doing like, he started doing software in addition to the practice. And I just started like withdrawing because I didn't want to do it, but I didn't want to fail. I don't want to disappoint my husband. Therefore,
Mhm.
I felt like I didn't have a way out. So I almost felt like trapped. And then we started having children, because what do you do when your marriage is failing? You have a child. What do you do when it still doesn't get better? You get another one and a third one. I don't know how we did
Mhm.
that. Sometimes I get women who come to me now and they are saying like, "Oh, we're falling apart, but I want another child." And I'm like, "What are you thinking?" But that was me. That was exactly
Mhm.
me. We were like truly, I felt like my life just didn't belong to me. And I think that
Mhm.
was the thing. Like when I started working with a coach for myself, I tried so many different things. For 10 years, all Tony Robbins events, a lot of different things. But it was so blindly staring at me when my coach asked me, "Who is Yola?"
Mhm.
Idea. I
Yeah.
didn't know what I like. I didn't know what I didn't disliked. What was me
Yeah.
like? What was giving me joy? I had no idea. It was just like you almost like get into this tunnel, and it's like you don't see anything. You just know that you're this mother that so you have to take care of the kids. Then you know you're the wife, so you have to kind of like deal with this husband who you don't want to deal with because you're like you lost yourself, so now you're resentful. And then I
Right.
had this business to deal with that was kind of not fulfilling me anymore. And I was really falling apart. And I was so truly blessed to find the resources that I did that and the coaching that actually asked me like, who is Yola? And when I started discovering who I was, it was like this magic. I was like, I
Mhm.
matter. That like actually my life matters. I'm not only here to
Yeah.
serve others,
Right.
I can serve others way better when I take care of myself.
First.
Yes. It's the putting
Right.
the whole ideal mask on first, which I did not do at all. I was depleted. I was like so proud of doing payroll from a hospital when I was going to deliver my child, and I'm still doing payroll. The
Yeah.
level of commitment to wanting to please and to do all the things, and yet losing
Mhm.
yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, it's so thank you for sharing, because when you said one thing, I mean, you said many things that I want to come back to, but you said one thing and you said, that you kind of like you were high on praise, right? Like you were very high on praise, meaning that affirmation from your husband, regardless on what love language it would have been, maybe verbally or through acts of gifts or like acts of service or whatever love language you are really into, that was really important to you. And I want to assume, and I'm not quite sure if it's safe to say that you wouldn't get it at the time. And that's also another thing where I feel like now looking back on one healed self, is this really something that I actually really need to be happy? Or is it because I'm not receiving it because I'm not giving it to myself first? And
Mhm.
for me, when I speak out of my own personal life, I think that was a really big chunk of that, where I had this really expectation of like, well, you are my husband and you're supposed to do this and that for me. But I didn't really fulfill that part at all for myself. I kind of just waited there, thinking, okay, when is this and this going to happen? But I didn't take any manners in my own hand by really caring for myself. For instance,
Yeah.
I'm a Starbucks girl. Like I love to go and have good coffee. It doesn't have to be Starbucks, could be any kind of cute coffee
Mhm.
shop, but that's my jam, right? Like I love to go and have cute coffee and sit on a patio, or like I love to have like a nice glass of wine and read like an interesting book or something. And I wouldn't do that because my responsibility within me was so yelling, you cannot do that. Your main responsibility is to be at home, to take care, to cook a meal, to have the home nice and clean, to have groceries there, to have the laundry done. And when my list wasn't done, I didn't have any allowance to myself to even be like, I actually don't need to do laundry today. Screw laundry. I will just go for a Starbucks and just hang out, even if it's three
Mhm.
hours and he has to make himself a sandwich today you
Yes.
know? And I'm wondering, does that in your role now looking back, not only being a marriage mentor, and a certified coach in this aspect, without the coaching, without the educational belts that you collected, but just from a human part of yourself, of your healed self today, did that matter? Did that matter that you did not accept, respect, or had enough self-love for you, and therefore we were craving it so much from there?
Yes, that is absolutely 100% true. And it's a
Mhm.
very weak, not a weak, it's a very not even vulnerable, because it's a position of relying on somebody else to make you happy. And
Mhm.
it's a trap, because I remember my son, if he would come and tell me, "Mom, I love you, you're the best mom in the world," then I'll be happy. But if I didn't give him TV time and he will come and say, "Mom, you're the worst mom in the world," then I would be crashing. So my whole happiness and unhappiness was relying on other people. And that's a very, very bad place to be, because you have no power over yourself at all. You're completely relying on other people to hold you. And that's too much
Mhm.
responsibility to give to other people. And
Mhm.
it's kind of interesting, because I was doing interviews recently, and by mistake, I messaged a man. And I usually interview just women. And I asked him, like, what is the biggest pet peeve in relationships that you have? And he said he was married for 23 years. He got a divorce, and then he dated like 36 women in 6 months to find the one. But he said his biggest pet peeve was that his wife didn't know how to make herself happy.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's not his job to make her happy, which is exactly what we're talking about here. It's not their spouse's job. We are self-depriving. We think that the society, the community requires us to do that because that's what we've seen. Like your
Mhm.
Starbucks, right? We think that we
Mhm.
have to do the dishes, we have to do all those things, and then we're like disappointed, and we feel deprived, and we feel emotionally disconnected because we're working all the time and yet not getting the praise. But if I don't
Mhm.
need the praise from you or from this person or that person, I can give it to myself. I'm not that needy anymore. Otherwise, it's a needy energy, which is not very attractive, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I feel like that breaking part, that looping in your mind to even get there, understanding, because nobody really wants to admit to themselves that they're needy. Because
Yeah.
what would that mean? It would mean I'm broken, right? I'm not healed
Mm.
in some aspects. I'm missing something. And I feel
Yeah.
like that self-discovery, like really being allowing yourself again to go on that self-discovery of like really just being transparent with yourself, of like, okay, look, there's a pattern here. What is
Mhm.
my pattern? Why do I constantly find myself in the same situation? And it could be emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, in jobs, with people, with friends, with whatever. Why is it always that it seems to be always coming back to one part? Where is that really coming from? You
Mhm.
know? But
Absolutely.
I think it's so interesting when we really talk about just the dynamic of a husband and wife. I mean, we can also talk about any other dynamic, but we are exchanging an example today of such,
Mhm.
um where it's like, really, I know how that felt as a woman being married to a man, where I wanted to be so perfect, and
Yes.
because of lack of self-esteem and self-confidence, really, now looking back at it, those are my two downfalls in general with inside of me. But I had no idea. I had
Mhm.
no idea that that's even happening inside of me. I was so quick to point fingers. I was so quick to be like, well, if he wouldn't do this, then we wouldn't be here. And if this wouldn't be occurring, then that wouldn't happening. And so I'm wondering, not only from a coach point of view and a mentor point of view, but really from Yola that has not been a coach. How did you handle that? Where was a part for you in your overall relationship where you found yourself like, man, this is something that I gotta fix for me. This has nothing to do with him. Was that before the spinning and before I'm not going to be married to you anymore, those 10 years that you spoke about? Or was that after, or really at the tipping point? Or when would it really hit you in a sense where you're like, that's something I gotta, it's me?
Yes, and I actually will share something with you talking about affirmations, and it's really powerful. I had those two plaques, and I had one from the church where I was part of this mommy group, and on that it said, "You're inspiration. You're this beautiful servant. You're this. You're that." So I had that one, and then I had another plaque from my office from the staff, and they would say the same thing, like, "You're inspiration. You're such a smart woman. You're a rock star. You did it." And I would look at those plaques sometimes, and that's where my worth was. Like, that's what, like, I'm like, what did those people see in me that I don't see in myself?
Yeah, I know.
I
Oh my
was
God.
just
Yeah.
feeling so broken. I was feeling like I had to get this external validation all the time. And like that, I pulled that up recently because I was giving a talk to my whole coaching body. They chose me as a speaker and I was sharing those facts. That's
Mhm.
why I pulled them up, but I forgot because I didn't need it. Right. So that was really deep moment to realize how much I have grown and how
Mm.
much loving yourself is such a huge step. It's such a huge step in our life. But yeah, it's like,
Yeah, I can tell it's still touching you. I think I can tell it's very, even though I want to proudly say that you are healed that wound of yours, right? But still it's sensitive. It's a sensitive because it was so long part of us, right? It's if you
my
carry that kind of,
my whole life.
yeah,
It's
yes,
not
if you
even my
can,
husband. See, I brought this to the marriage. It's not
yes.
like he gave it to me. I was looking for validation all those years, all this life. So it's not like my husband did that, except I was expecting it from my husband. Like all
Of
those
course.
people were giving it to me, but I was expecting from my husband. And in the beginning, he was giving me. That's why I gave up my life because he was giving me the validation. But then when he stopped, because I didn't like the job I was doing. I became miserable. When you follow somebody else's dream and not yours, you're miserable, no matter how hard you try. And I would just say, like, I'm doing everything for you. And I was like, what? What do you mean? You're not being pleasing at all. See, it doesn't come out, right? Because the energy you give, it's like such a poison energy. Uh,
Yeah.
I have this analogy that like if somebody asks you for something, and we women always wants to say yes because we want to please people, we want to the disagreements. So if you pass it on to somebody else and somebody asks you for something and you mean no, but you say yes, it's like giving somebody a poisoned apple because
Mhm.
the energy that comes with that apple is very poisonous. That person would much rather say, ask you for that apple, and you would say, no, I can't. And they'll be okay. It will be uncomfortable maybe for like a few seconds for me to say no or I can't. And it will be beautiful retained energy. But we're so uncomfortable with those few seconds that we hand off
Mhm.
that poison apple left and right. And we get poison apples from other people too, other pleasers.
Right.
So that was
Right.
a big thing that I actually brought to the marriage that my husband was asking me for things. I was giving it to him, but I was poisoning the relationship by saying yes when I really meant no or I can't.
Mm.
But
Mm.
I'll share with you the real breaking point actually, because we had three children by then, and I was standing cooking in the kitchen, and I'm thinking that I'm so glad that my husband is upstairs because he would come from work, he would go to the office, and I will go to the office on different days usually. We did different things, but he'll come from home, come home, go back upstairs to work. And it was a blessing for me because if we were anytime in the same room, we would be like butting heads. And anything to do with the kids, I actually took over all the responsibility for the kids because I didn't want a disagreement. And it was much easier
Mhm.
not to even ask him what he thought and just do it all
Right.
myself by myself. But then and on the other side, there was a lot of responsibility because you're making every single decision. If something backfires, it's on you. And the whole point of for me now, it's like to have two parents is to share the responsibility. But needless to say, he would go upstairs and he would work. But then the kids are playing on the floor. I'm cooking dinner and I'm thinking it would be so much better to just be a single mom. Because at least I'm doing already all the things. I just wouldn't have to put up with his attitude, right? And all the
Right.
fights and all the disagreements. But needless to say, he comes to the kitchen and I know it's going to be like this death of thousand cuts. And he walks in and yes, we start fighting. So we're standing on this arch because I tried to push us out so the kids wouldn't see because that's how I grew up. And we're yelling at each other and we're screaming. And like suddenly, like my 6-year-old son comes in, he pushes us aside, like, step away, guys. And he looks at us with those pleading eyes and he
Mm.
screams, guys, just stop fighting. Whew. it broke my heart.
Mm. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
literally broke my heart because that was the moment where I knew.
You knew
I just
something had
knew.
to change.
And something had to change. And
Mhm.
next, I just couldn't go like this anymore. And it's
Yeah.
interesting because I had a coach. I had coaches and healers for so many years, and I had a coach that I called and I said, like, listen, this is not working. I need something different. And she gave me a recommendation for the book, The Empowered Wife by Laura Doyle. And I got the book. I'm like, just another book, but I'll get it. I'm like at my wit's end. But the truth is that when the student is ready, the right thing shows up. And it showed up for me. And I inhaled that book over the weekend, literally inhaled it. And by like 3 days after that, I already knew I wanted to be a coach for that program. And I just embarked on a journey of truly fixing my own marriage. And within like the first 3 months, we decreased our fighting by like 90%. And now speaking about creating a beautiful family and beautiful marriage.
Right.
And I remember like on our 14th, like I mentioned that the 10th was the worst, but on our 14th wedding anniversary, I remember standing in the kitchen and like huggy, huggy, smoochy, smoochy, as my daughter says, with my husband. And the kids flocked around us. They grabbed each other's hands. They looked at us up and they screamed with those joyful eyes. They screamed like, family hug.
Oh,
That was one of the most beautiful moments in my life. I
yeah,
honestly,
I bet. No, I can feel it. And thank you so much for sharing this. This
yeah,
was such a beautiful story. Literally, I got so emotional in between too, because it really makes me happy when there's people out there that really prioritize their true love so deeply for themselves that one of them, even if it's just one of them in that moment says, look,
yeah,
something has to change and I will take my own journey in this. I will find whatever it is that is broken inside of me to fix me first in order to be here and show up 100%. And I wish this could happen to everybody. You know what I mean? I wish this
yeah,
could really, this enlightening and this really epiphany feeling of like something just got to change, and for some it does, and for some it doesn't. And, there's no judgment at all because I truly believe that we all meet each other for a specific reason. And every person in our life is inside our life for a job, like for a specific thing that only this person can really fulfill in my life and in your life and in everybody else's life. And this is why it was so perfectly orchestrated by Divine Creator for these people to enter in order either for us to teach them something or for them to teach us something, right?
mhm, sure,
And I'm so happy that you guys really jumped over the hump because this is such a common problem. It's such a common problem, especially when we're so long with somebody and we're so in tune with that person and we're really cannot imagine our life being without that person, but so many things are not sitting well. I think the majority of humans is really easy to be like, well, this is the behavior that really makes me upset. This is really what hurts me. And I'm trying to explain to you, I'm trying to have conversation with you, but you're closing me off. You're like, you're shutting me down. I don't know where to go from here. I don't know what to do. And every person is different. Some females really are having a high energy of like wanting to yell and wanting to scream because they feel like I don't know what else anymore to do with you because I sat down with you, I wrote your letter, I texted you, I wrote you an email, I tried to make an appointment on your calendar, you just won't hear me. And then, they just gravitate to that. And some females or male, no matter, they just shut down. There's nothing to
yes,
talk. There's just
yes,
completely a wall that just comes down and there's nowhere coming through to that person at all anymore. And, I feel like when we lose that emotional connection with each other, when that part really hits us, where it's like, I don't even know who you are anymore. I don't seem to have any pathway to your heart anymore because it's so hardened because
yeah,
of resentment, what you created in your life and your trauma that you brought, but also what I brought. And now here we are, two traumatized people wanting to love each other, but we just simply don't know how. And it's
yeah,
like, what now? You know what I mean? And I think a lot of times it is an easier way out to be like, you know what? I tried it, I've done it, I cannot, I don't want to anymore, and goodbye. And
yeah,
sometimes that might be the right thing for that person because, we haven't even touched on toxicity. We haven't touched on abusive behavior. Like, I'm not condoning into that at all. Once that boundary is crossed for me, in my opinion, there's really no coming back from that, at least in my world. but like if it's really that part, that emotional, that's really hard to find back to each other, that loving way, like you said, from like your son having this onto your daughter having that, which is completely but it's the same people. That's
Yeah.
what's in it. It's just the same family, it's the same people. So obviously there was something stronger in you and in him too, to just be like, you know what, I got to do this also. There's something that I have to contribute.
Hmm.
But I'm wondering, did your husband contribute to, not necessarily to your own personal growth healing journey, but in his own way? Did you then started to see certain things when you went on your journey of little glimpses and little things where he then started to change too and started to kind of like acclimate to the new Yola and to the new healed version of you? Or how? Yeah, so
Yeah,
curious to
it's a
know.
great question because the reason why, for example, I work with women only is because when there's a man and a woman coming together, each of them expects the other to do the job, to do the work. But if you have one
Mhm.
person only, no matter what, I guess whether you have a man or a woman, they know that they are the only one responsible, and right, that the only person I can be responsible for is myself. So equated
Mm,
like relationship, it's like a dance, right? And yes, it takes two to tango, right?
mm,
But it only takes one to change the steps of the dance.
mm,
And that's what I did. I changed the steps of the dance. And guess what? When I changed the steps of the dance, when I started became more grateful, when I started to see my husband in the best possible case scenarios, when I started being grateful and appreciative and just seeing him in a different light, very soon he started seeing me in a different light. See, I was so
mm,
deprived of affirmations, but then I realized I wasn't giving him anything either. So we were both people starving each other of all that stuff. Granted, now I don't even need it, which is great. If I get it, hallelujah. I'll just say thank you and I smile. But in the past, if he didn't give me gratitude, I was like feeling so deprived. So it's like that growth that has come through me, it also got onto him because like I would never say thank you to him for a period of time. And I remember I started doing that and I just said thank you for this and thank you for that, whatever, for setting like calling the kids to the table or picking up the kids or doing whatever. And then he started thanking me. I have never taken him to we were to marriage counseling. We went to marriage counseling before, but when I started this program, he asked me actually, because we talked about investment and all the things involved. And he asked me, so tell me, what do I need to do? Like, how do I need to change? And I just looked at him and I said, nothing. He looked at me like puzzled. He was like, what do you mean? I'm like, nothing. I got this. And I did. It wasn't the easiest journey,
mm.
but oh my gosh, so worth it. The
So
know
worth it.
to know that I can single-handedly do that,
Yeah.
believable.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think, it's that warrior that then comes out, in oneself of like, this is like, I know I'm responsible for the flaws that I carry and that I brought, and I want to go and fix them, which really exactly like you said, and previously, it has nothing to do with the person across from you. And that's sometimes so challenging to really understand in the moment when you feel disrespected, wrongly treated, hurt, or if unfairly treated. It's so hard to actually see beyond it and be like, you know what, I get it. I understand where you are. I understand why you're treating me this way, because I get it, from a energy level, from another perspective level, from a more deeper rooted spiritual level. Like, I get you. I'm not even taking any offense or personally, because I see what's happening. In fact, I will just, do my behind the scene work and help you too, kind of like to jump over that.
Yeah.
Right. But I think that's really challenging because we are so reactive as humans, and every reaction has an action usually, or vice versa. And that's really, and then when we talk about ego, now let the ego come in and flock in and be all like, yeah, no, you can't let her talk to you like that, or you can't him do that, and da 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 da, then it becomes another whole thing, because now we're not even driven anymore by our highest selves, but we're driven by the ego that has nothing to do with true, pure love, which is really grace and forgiveness no matter what, you know?
Yes.
And so, yeah, I think for me that was very challenging to get over that, because, similar to you, I was craving that like that confirmation of like, look at you, what you're doing, and I tried my very best, like I was like a like in a catalog, a children's catalog, I was a wife like that, in my opinion. I'm like, okay, the house was clean, food was done, everything was picture perfect at all the time. Like I did my 1,000,000,000%. And at the end, all I thought what I was expecting was just take me out for a nice date. Just treat me in
Yes.
it, you know what I mean? Like buy me a gift here and there or whatever, whatever. But I wasn't encountering the brokenness that we both shared individually from each other. I wasn't
Mhm.
able to see that. I wasn't able to
Yeah.
see his broken parts. All I saw is his reality, how he acted towards me. That's
Mhm.
all I saw.
And it's always like what you're talking about is really powerful because I see that all the time. The house was
Mhm.
perfect, the things were done. I was doing all those things to please him, to make sure that he came home to whatever that might be. And I worked and I did all those things to get that affirmation, to get all those things. But in
Right.
reality, the crazy thing is that the women who have the best relationships, they're actually not doing that much.
Right.
They are doing much less. They're doing much less housework. They are working much less. They are doing all those things because they allow the men to step in and help. But we fall into this trap that like I see something that needs to be done and it could wait for a day or two, but I see it and it's nagging at me and it's saying like, pick me up, pick me up. And I'm asking my husband to pick it up, but he's not going to do it now. He's going to do it in 2 days. So therefore I'm going to go and do it myself.
Mhm.
So that patience of knowing when to do and when to wait, but the more I can be patient and wait, the more he's going to step up and do it. So we
So is
overwork
it,
ourselves.
wow. So is it fair to say that it's actually a self-created pattern?
Yes, it's very safe to say. We
Wha-
we pull ourselves into that trap all the time. I'll share a story with you. Um, so there was this hot summer day, right? Our kids are still little. Like a lot of our stories are from when the kids were little because it's such a pivotal part in life, right? And that's where most marriages
Yeah.
fall apart. It's when the kids are little, and then like it's the empty nester divorce, right? So the kids were little. They're playing in the house, and we're starting to get ready to go to the beach. So I'm running back and forth and I'm like all sweaty and I like shove everything into the minivan, the stroller and the toys and the backpacks and the food, changing diapers, feeding them in the middle. And I'm like literally like I'm like sweaty and exhausted before we even get there. So then I walk back into the kitchen because the car was in the garage. I walk back into the kitchen. I look over to the right and I see my husband on the couch on his phone. And I'm thinking to myself, this selfish jerk. He's making me do all the work. Well, little did I know that I actually trained him that way.
Mhm.
Because in the past, if he were to go and load up the minivan, I would go back there, I would remove everything and put it back in the perfect way. Whose way? My way.
Right.
So pretty soon, probably out of the fear of maybe feeling emasculated, maybe feeling wronged or just doing something that completely made no sense, right? He stopped helping altogether because why bother?
Right. It's going to be wrong anyway.
Like, yeah,
I'm
I just,
I'm doomed if I do, and I'm doomed if I don't.
yeah. So he just stopped. Well,
Right.
then later when I learned how to actually shift it and not do all those things and not criticize and not correct and just let him do things his way, guess what? The
Mhm.
car still got loaded. I don't go, I don't look because does it really matter how the trunk is loaded
It shouldn't, but it does matter in that moment when you don't see a
when you don't see it?
pattern, when you don't see the dots, when you're not able to just, instead of being
Yeah.
right, just being happy. And it sounds so cliche. I know we all heard this one. Do you want to be married or you want to be right? In this
Oh,
case, we
yeah.
all heard it, but it's in that moment, when you're not stepping into your own soul power, when you're not even knowing who you are anymore as a person, when we talk about back when we started this first conversation, where you mentioned that you didn't even know anymore who you are. And when your mentor had ask you, actually tell me, who are you again? What are you about? What do you like? What do you don't like? What are your hobbies? Like,
Yeah.
and if we lose that part, and I can so say this from my own personal life too, when I lost that part of me, nothing, nothing in this world could fulfill me in this moment because I was so empty and so unfulfilled within my own self that I didn't even know anymore what is what I like, what isn't what I like. Who was I before I even met this human?
Mhm.
Who was this girl that even was
Yeah.
her own persona and had her own dreams and had her own drive before she met this person. And I
Yeah.
couldn't figure it out for the life of me because everything melted so into each other and everything got so blurry that I had no idea anymore at all. All I remember is that I sometimes loved to drink coffee. And I remember sometimes I used to sit on a patio and have a nice glass of wine. I did remember that. But everything in between, like, what drives me, what mentally stimulates me, what sexually gets me going, like all there was, it was just, it just became a big robotic movement of
Yeah.
like, okay, that's now how it is, and this is the lane. This is kind of like, the steps in the sand, and we're just following the steps because that's how it got created. And I just felt so dull at one point.
Yeah.
Everything felt so dull and so boring and so just nothing new anymore is happening. And then when I would come out of the gate, the creative self that I am, he'd be like, what is that? Where is this coming from? And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
is it coming from somewhere, or is this really who I used to be, but I forgot?
Yeah. 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 We forget ourselves. And then, so all the
Mm,
stuff that you just mentioned, all the things, the loss of identity, like if you go backtrack to that minivan and like the
mhm.
reason why did I take everything out?
Right.
Because the underlying thing for me was
Mhm.
he is the doctor, I'm the wife, I work together. But if maybe I don't have anything else, I don't have identity, but maybe I can load the minivan properly. Maybe I can put the
Wow.
diagram properly, because if I can't even do that, then who am I? So we start
What are you worth?
backfiring. Well, yeah, what is my worth? What is my worth? So I have to
Wow.
criticize and I have to tell him how to do it because that gives me value. Because I didn't find value in anything else. So it goes really deep into like, why do we do certain things? Why do we control so much? And the control thing comes up even still. 6 years later, we went to Big
Mm,
Bear. We went to Big Bear skiing and the same minivan. And we go back and I'm like, we are taking stuff out of the trunk. And it's a lot of stuff because it was snowboarding. There's just a lot of stuff. And we're staying overnight. So we had a lot of things. And I'm like, okay, we're going to take it out and organize it nicely outside. I'm like, if anybody cares. So I start doing that. And I tell my husband how to put it. And he just looked at me and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing that. And I just stepped away. I laughed and I went back into the front of the seat of the car and I just sat there like, I'm not touching anything. Even now, it still pops in. It's
mm,
crazy that
mm,
innate need to control,
mm.
to make things
Yeah.
right, like as if it matters. And usually,
Mhm.
who cares?
Who cares, right? But it's so interesting also that the dynamic now really through the healing had shifted so badly that this would have been an argument back in the days, a straight
Yeah.
up full blown argument,
Yeah.
negative energy exchange versus today it's like, "You okay, babe? Oh, are you that for a moment? Are you back there for just a second? It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a moment." And you're like, "Oh yeah, I just stepped back. Okay, you know what? Let's just forget. I'll see you in the car."
Yeah.
Like just now really I feel also like taking accountability, like
Hmm.
just really being accountable for yourself and your own movements and knowing, because listen, at the end of the day, no matter what a person openly and vulnerably shares with another, inside of you who you are, like
Hmm.
your flaws and your talents and your gifts and all that, and I feel like when we take really accountability for the part that we're still mastering to become better or mastering to let go or achieving to get to, a goal, I think it's fair to just be like, you know what, since I'm still knowing of myself, I'm mastering this characteristics of mine or to whatever, I will just take that and be accountable and have my own shadow work with myself and my own mirror work of like, okay, I get it. Ooh, I just stepped back into that. Okay, not quite there yet. Still need another round, still need a little bit more healing, and whatever healing might be to anybody, it could be
Yeah.
from like really sitting quietly and just listening to calm music to journaling to running to having a coach, having a mentor, meditation, spiritual guidance, whatever one really finds fitting for them. I think is really where we then would go back and be like, I think I need another half hour with this book, or I need
Mm.
another good walk by myself to just
Yeah.
really put the dots together. But yeah, I mean, being accountable, that's big part in general, just being
Yeah.
transparent and just saying like, this is really something I'm still working on. I'm so sorry if within my process I offend you or I disrespect you or I hurt you. It's not where I'm coming from at all, but I'm
Mm.
really trying my very best to get rid of what I personally don't like about myself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think when we start off a conversation like that, and just really laying it all out there versus this, oh no, I can't tell her because she's going to
Mm.
use it against me.
Yeah.
If I say this, it'll be used against me, no matter if she or he don't matter, but just the vulnerability part of like, if I cannot honestly say what it is because I'm so afraid it will be used against me, or worse, it will happen again to me the same way it did the first time around.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I usually encourage women to, like, when I work with women, I encourage them not to share actually too much with the spouses,
Mhm.
because it's comes off much different when it feels maybe more authentic, right? Like, I wouldn't tell them, go and tell your husband, give him your husband 3 gratitudes a day. I had somebody who did that. I'm like, oh, why? So it's always
Yeah.
prefaced with, please do not share anything you read in the book, and please do not share anything that's in the course, because it's not the right time. It doesn't
Mhm.
mean that you can share it 6 years later. My husband knows quite a bit of the skills I use now, and I still don't share too much, because it's like, those are for me, right? Those are for me to monitor my own behavior. For example, if I start getting controlling too much, like, telling him where to park and stuff like that, he would just look at me and laugh now, because he know it's just funny. But in the past, it
Mhm.
wasn't. He was like, Yola, so can I park here? Is that okay? Is that spot okay? He would just make fun.
Right.
But I know when I start getting controlling, when I have this innate snappy mood and all those things, I have to literally check with myself and ask myself, how do I feel? What do I want? And it might be that
Right.
I'm sleep deprived. Maybe I need coffee, or maybe I need to rest, or maybe I need to like just go for a walk and just unwind and stop rushing everybody and telling everybody what to do, because I can get there
Mhm.
still. Right. But it's my
Mhm.
accountability, like, which is just set for myself. How do I feel? What do I want? And from that place, I
Mhm.
can see my self-care. Is it a 0 or is it a 10? If it's a 10, I can let anything slide. But if I'm like at a 0 or like a negative, then you're
Right.
gonna be on my last nerve and you're gonna pay for it, even though it's not your
Right.
fault, right? I just can't handle myself.
Yeah. And I think that's so powerful, to really have that self check-in daily with yourself, and again, really allow yourself to have whatever it is that you need in that moment,
Right.
because if you really need in this moment just to rest for 30 minutes, then just do that. It's better to do
Right.
that because all you have is your own temple,
Mhm.
and thoughts can play so many tricks on us, and if we're not listening to what we really need or what we really want, I feel like all of that always turns into resentment. And
Yes.
sometimes, feel like the worst resentment one we can have is towards ourselves because it's the strongest one. We think
Yeah.
it's guided towards another person, but really, most of the time, it's actually guided to ourselves because we let other people to just cross our boundaries. We don't know how to communicate our boundaries. We don't even know how to set boundaries. That's already a really big frustrational part, I feel like. And then also another thing is, just to take care of you, like if you feel like you really just want to read a book right now, but you have a 100 million things on your to-do list, just prioritize what really needs to get done and still please yourself in the sense, like still
Yes.
have time to yourself and honor what your body and your mind is telling you, like
Mhm.
it's so valuable to really have those check-ins and really be like, okay, wait, is this really making me mad? Is it the person or is it a trigger? Is it an old
Exactly.
wound? Where's it coming from? What's happening?
Yeah.
And I would literally have self-talk with myself. I'd be like, okay, hold on. I need to remove myself. I would go in the bathroom and I would
Mhm.
look in the mirror and I would literally have physical self conversations with me. Where at first I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is crazy. Who does that? Right. But it helped me. It helped me so much to really figure out what is my problem right now in this moment before I mastered my tools. What's
Yeah.
happening? Why am I so upset right now? What is really going on? Right.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, but just allowance, man. Just really not self-strict. Don't be self-strict. That's so
Yes.
big.
Yeah. It's self-grace, right? Giving yourself grace, because if you can give yourself grace, now you can give grace to everybody else, right? If you show grace to your husband, you show grace to your children, now they can allow themselves to feel the feeling, to feel the emotion, and not yell at themselves because we beat ourselves up so much. At least I used to be. Oh my God, I used to be my worst enemy. Like I'll be so harsh on myself, and so many women are harsh on themselves. So they look at the list of the things they have to do for the day, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I have to get all this done." But see, the feminine
Mm.
is not about always doing. The feminine is about being. So if we don't allow the feminine to be, the kind of like the negative feminine comes up, and it's really resentful and bitchy and moody. But if we allow
Mhm.
the feminine to play, give her a break for going for a walk and relaxation, all the other work is going to get done so much faster. And the good thing is that if it doesn't get done, the other family members can come and help.
Is that something, is that a course in your teachings too? Like, is that part of your program that you offer? Because I know you offer programs as a marriage mentor.
Yes.
But is that part, like if somebody were to decide to take a course with you, would that be a part of it?
Mhm. Yeah, it absolutely
Yeah.
is. It teaches how to
Mm.
accept help, how to accept all the different things. So people actually have the
Mhm.
opportunity to step up and do things for you. So like it's just an opportunity for me. Like I can look at the dishwasher and say, oh, damn it, dang it. I have to unload it, right? And I have this to do and this to do. Or I could just say, oh, my kids are at home. Let's go ahead and put a schedule together so you can guys rotate. And now the kids are
Mm.
learning something and I have more time and they feel more useful because they're contributing to the family. So as by
Exactly.
doing, there's so many negatives with women doing so much. It
Mhm. Mm.
outweighs any positives of this sacrifice and this
Mm.
constant going because we create very stressful, very stressed out environment for our children to grow in. But
Mhm.
by doing too much, because we are stepping
Mhm.
constantly into this masculine action thing, because feminine is being, masculine is doing. But what we can see women is doing right now, they're always doing. Therefore, they're not being. That's why we have so many divorces because action and action, men and men, doesn't they don't mesh, the masculine and masculine. But a feminine and masculine just dance together. So if I'm
Yeah.
taking over constantly in the masculine energy, I'm becoming, it's not my natural state. I'm gonna become resentful, and then the man is gonna have a resentful wife. But if I can step into the feminine and allow myself to take a bath and relax and just not worry about if he is accepting it or not, but just do my thing, I'm going to be much softer and more relaxed. So when he comes over and he says something, I can be like, oh, honey, I know you love me. It's a different response.
Right, exactly. Yeah, again, it really is that. And also when you said about the kids doing, helping and being part of the family and unit, it's also very important because, if they don't learn it from us, they won't learn it at all. So it's really important
Yeah,
for them to really understand that this is how life works. We all have to contribute to have this beautiful home, to have these beautiful privileges. We do have to do our part,
yeah,
or like for instance, when women, when we first have a baby, we're so focused on that newborn baby that I tell you honestly, I would not want to be a man in that moment if I'm a nurturing mother because the baby becomes everything in that moment. And I
yeah,
feel it's very important for also for women to just remember that it's not just anymore about the baby, but it's still about your husband and your unity too, because without your husband, you wouldn't even have the baby, and I
absolutely.
think it's very important to find a nice, beautiful, balanced harmony in the home where it's like, of course, if the baby is small and needs attention, absolutely, there's no question about that. But there's times when the baby is sleeping. There's
Mhm.
times when the baby is nursing very quietly and everything is nice. You can snuggle up with each other. Like it's those small, really valuable moments that sometimes get so easily overlooked because of the too much doing and not being. And I
Correct.
think it's such a valuable example. It was so that to me is a golden nugget, like how do
Mhm.
you really master your feminine and your masculine energy within your own temple? Because even no matter if you're feminine or masculine, whatever you consider yourself, you still have both energies inside
You
of you.
do.
You still carry both,
Right.
just like you carry light and dark. And it's important to have both because you never get to appreciate what's something amazing when you never been through something that wasn't so amazing, because now
Yeah.
you really have a great comparison of like, okay, I do know what is feels good and I do know what doesn't feel good,
Yeah.
but sometimes harmonizing out that feeling of like, okay, I know I need to be a little bit this and a little bit that, but how do I really get there? And that's why I think it's so cool that there's people like you out there that are really helping women to just figure it out together, because we need this. We
Mhm.
need other people, not just, we don't need to be just book smart. We need actual human beings that really have been in this real authentic life situation for you to really get what I'm going through. Like,
Mhm.
And I feel this is why I feel like I'm resonating with this so much, because you are a live person that just doesn't talk, rainbows and bubbles. Like, you talk real stuff that actually had happened to your own life, which I'm respecting you so much for even doing that, because this is not an easy thing. It's still your private life after all, right? But you're doing it for the sake of marriages to survive. And I think that's so admirable. And I think it's so beautiful that you not only found your own true gift, what you're really supposed to do in this life, but you found your own kind of love for you that now you get to spread with so many others, like in your own home, but also outside of your home. And I think that's so wonderful. Isn't it so cool to live your dream? Isn't it so amazing right now looking at it?
It absolutely is amazing because I know that like when we follow somebody else's dreams, we crumble,
Mm.
right? But
Yeah.
then we're afraid to follow our own dreams. So now I'm
Right.
in a place, so it's kind of really sweet spot when I'm following my dreams, I'm doing what I want to do, and I'm back with working with my husband. But there's no resentment. There's just pure love and connection. Kind of like, yeah, we'll still have like a little things here and there, of course, that's normal. But it's that
Yes.
feeling of like I'm not when I said that we'll go back to working together, I just said I need to keep my own identity and I want to keep my coaching and I want to keep doing that because if I don't, I'm going to start resenting you. And I don't want that to happen. And he was like, I understand. And so I'm still doing like half and half where I get to do what I love to do and I get to help out my husband. And it actually brought us even closer. So before the work was taking over our marriage and it was just a business partnership almost, now it's almost like this dance. Okay, we're going to do this together and we're going to do this separately. So it's like a breath, right? Together and separate. So the same like
Right.
with men and women, right? Like you are together sometimes and we have to have our own identities. It's so
Hmm.
critical, so critical. Men don't give up their identities as much as women do.
Hmm. Yeah, it's
Sometimes they
critical.
would, but yeah.
It's really critical to remain your own individual human and person, and have still have your own dreams, because it's beautiful to have like that spouse, and it's the most beautiful thing when you found your person. That's wonderful.
Mhm.
But it is still so important to really remember that you came into this world alone, and you will fundamentally leave this world alone too, like you're going
Yeah.
to have a beautiful journey, the way you choose for yourself, but fundamentally when it's time to go, you're going to go by yourself the same way you got here, so it's really important to keep that individuality of oneself and
Right.
honor that too, because that makes you who you are, and that's fundamentally what attracts that life to you and that spouse to you, and those things that we get to enjoy in this lifetime. So it's, yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's very important.
I look at that like even almost like as you when you die, you take a reconciliation of your life, right? And you're going to
Mhm.
look at that and you're gonna say, okay, I'm glad that I had the family. I'm glad I spent the time with the family. I'm glad I did this. And then like I was working with my husband, stuff like that. But did I really fulfill my purpose in life? Did I do what I wanted to do? And for the longest time, I didn't know what I wanted to do. But my biggest pain became my biggest gift.
Yeah.
Right? From such a long lineage of very unhappy marriages. Gosh, like so many people unhappy. For me to become who I became, because I swore I would never get married. I literally swore because after everything I've seen. So to actually be married now to the guy that I'm crazy about, to do what I absolutely love to do, even though his dream was for me to only work with him and not do other stuff, but for me to be able to be strong enough to step out and say, no, wait a minute, this is not good for us. Actually, me doing what I want to do is better for the marriage.
Hmm.
That's why like I'm
Yeah.
really like really when I look at children, when we raise our children and like what they choose to do in life, I'm really adamant that they choose a path that suits for them. Yes,
Hmm.
we're going to teach them how to do business. Yes, we're going to teach them all those things, but ultimately they need to choose what they do. We
Hmm.
can't tell them what to do, otherwise they're going to be miserable. The same we do the same thing in marriages. If we become somebody
Yeah.
else, lose ourselves, you can't be happy with that.
Right. I so agree with that. We
Yeah.
definitely have to allow everybody to really, unfold and evolve the way they think it's the right thing for them. Of course, we're going to be there and catch them, when they make
Mhm.
mistakes, and we're going to warn them and maybe tell them consequences. Hey, look, if you do this, the consequence might be that. But fundamentally, everybody has the right to really experience this
Make
lifetime in their own
make their own
way.
mistakes. Make their own mistakes.
Right.
Even for our husbands, we try to protect them so much from like
Mhm.
making a bad financial decision or making this, but like, not loading the car properly that we get in
Right.
and we try to fix it. But
And
there's this beautiful saying, which is, it's a life lesson, not a wife lesson.
oh, wow.
So,
I love that.
which I absolutely love. And I stand by it so much because it allows my husband to be free to do what he needs to do. Because if I'm
Mhm.
constantly nagging over him and telling him, no, this is not going to work, this is not how you need to do
Mm.
this, da da da, then like it builds a distance between us. But if I say, I
Mm.
trust you, you got this, what a different feeling.
Mm.
Now
Yeah.
he's free to make a mistake. And if he's free to make a mistake, therefore I'm free to make a mistake. Because I don't nag
Mm.
at him, he doesn't have to nag at me and be worried that he made a mistake.
Yeah, and I think fundamentally we approach each other again with grace. It's like, okay,
Hmm.
I kind of
Yeah.
thought it's not a good idea, but it happens. Even if you thought it would have been a bad idea to make this decision, and then fundamentally it ended up making this decision,
Yeah.
and then it was bad. There's no, you see, I told you, so it's more like, hey, babe, it's okay. Like, no problem. We're in this together.
Yeah.
Like, good try though. Good for you to trying, and I saw it almost, maybe next time, like no more, none of that unnecessary negativity is necessary. It could just
Yes.
be approached from a different way. But I truly do believe that approaching any kind of situation like that, you really want to, I'm encouraging, for people really to take a deep dive on their own self first, and to really be like, how do I feel about me? When I
Mm.
look at myself, when I think of myself, do I have good thoughts about me? Do I feed myself with good
Yeah.
and happy thoughts and like calming and respectful things? Or do I tell myself, man, I'm stupid for doing this, and I'm
Yes.
da 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 da. It's very like that self, what you tell yourself in your mind matters so much,
Hmm.
because it's kind of like what you fill yourself with. Like you fill your own cup, and so make sure that whatever you're filling your own cup with, it's really from a kind point of view. Like, just be kind to yourself. Like,
Right.
it's, yeah, if
Absolutely.
you don't even know how to love yourself just yet, but just at least be kind to yourself and give
Hmm.
grace to your own self.
Absolutely. I had this woman, we have this exercise where we do gratitude, right? And we'll just
Mm.
look for the things we can be grateful for in our spouses. And that's kind of like where you start. And she had the hardest, she could find things, but she had the hardest time speaking it up or even sending it as a message. And then we
Wow.
dug deeper and I asked, what are you grateful for about yourself? And she was like, absolutely nothing. I'm like, ah. So we started digging deeper and I helped her find the things that she was grateful for about herself. And she started kind of telling herself what she was grateful for in those qualities that she has. And within like a few weeks, she was able to give gratitude to her husband. But when we don't love
Mhm.
ourselves, when we can't give gratitude to ourselves, it's very
Mm.
difficult to give it to somebody else. It's like this
Agreed.
empty cup, right? You can't do it. Like you can, there's the saying, like you can only love others to the capacity you can love yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't have no self-love for you, you're incapable. You're incapable, not even unwilling, because it's a whole
Yeah.
nother parachute and a whole nother
Right.
podcast.
Yeah.
But just incapable, literally logistically incapable of doing so. Because if you don't know how much worth you are to yourself, and you tell and you show and you prove it to yourself on daily basis, and this is not to get mixed up with being selfish or egotistical, not at
Right.
all, but just that healthy self-respect, that healthy way of, I honor and I respect myself enough to really do step up for myself and say, like, what, I love you, but I also love myself. And this
Yeah.
is not really what I would really want to drive and I really want to do, or I really craved on doing, even though this might have been our first agreement when we met each other. This isn't anymore something that I'm with, it just doesn't feel good anymore to me. So
Right.
I think that's very empowering. It's very empowering, taking back your power and your light, to be like, not because it was stolen on purpose, which sometimes it does, but in general speaking, um, we give it away.
I think you just hit the nail on the head right here. That's usually it's very rare that it's stolen away from us. Like that's like a
Right.
fraction. But most of the time we do give it away. And if we can claim it back, if we can bring the light back to ourselves, we can make ourselves feeling beautiful and feeling loved and feeling fulfilled, then it's just like
Mm.
it's such a different person to be loved. It's very difficult
Right.
to love somebody who is very needy and doesn't take care of themselves and their own needs
Yeah,
because it's exhausting for the other person. Like I can see it
totally.
now. Like I was so depleted, and like how could I expect my husband to come close to me when I was like this porcupine? Anything he will come and say to me, I was just like, go away, like just bouncing. Like how can you? And now I want you to love me, like love me, but like I'm porcupine. You can come close to me. So that whole self care idea, the love, self love, it just softens you up, and that's what the beautiful feminine shows up.
Mm. Yeah. Wow. Man, golden nuggets left and right. I can't even get enough of you. Like, wow. I'm so curious, what would be one thing, Yola, that you can say to somebody out there that literally is at the wit's end right now and doesn't have faith that this can really work, thinks this was a mistake to get married in the first place, is not happy with herself, knowingly or unknowingly, but knows something needs to change? What is one thing, in your opinion, where you could just like maybe say that if that would be one person watching right now, what will be something that you could maybe say from a woman to woman, from a broken marriage person that had a broken marriage, but also from a mentor point of view?
Marriage is not about finding the perfect partner, but it's about being the one who makes a difference.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah. Isn't that true, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. Man, this was, I'm having goosebumps, honestly. This was such a great conversation, and I'm honestly so proud of you, from just human to human. I'm so proud of you that you did not give up, that you pulled through, that you had the inner knowing that you are worth more to yourself, and that you seriously just, I'm going to do this.
Mhm.
I'm gonna find the strength inside of me to really pull through here. I'm so proud of you, because this is incredible. And look at where you are, on the other side of this beautiful rainbow, and you had to endure so much rain. But I'm so glad that you did, because you're like, and I told you at the beginning when we first came on here, you're glowing. Like, I don't know, I don't know what it
Just like
was, but I can tell that now it's really, it was so worth, and I'm so happy for you that you get to live this really extraordinary happy life with the person that God created for you. I'm happy for you. This is so wonderful.
thank you for having me, Jana. And yeah, I'm truly blessed. I do truly feel blessed to be where I am right now and to be with the same
Mm,
person I thought was a complete loss.
mm,
And just
yeah,
be the proof, the living, working proof that it is possible, that relationships can be easy with the right approach, and that we don't need to settle for loveless marriages because they can be created. They're created, they're not random acts. And we have the power as women, we have the power, especially men have the power too, but women are just truly unique in the way of emotional intelligence and what we really want out of life because we need that connection more.
yeah,
Knowing that we
agreed.
can do that.
Yeah, we do. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for
Okay,
such a great talk. I'm so appreciative of you.
thank you for having me.
Well, podcast lovers, another great one. What can I tell you? But as always, if you have anything on your heart, if there's maybe something you want to add to this conversation and be my guest, please know that my mic is always open to you. If you have any other topics you would like to share or be my guest, also my mic is open to you. And until then, stay rooted, stay blessed, and always stay connected to love, the strongest force in the universe.
Mm, love it.